Yeah, someone found the souvenir shop, didn't they?
Yeah.
But I'll get to that. Welcome back to the Dope Stroke podcast. We are here for another cracking episode coming right to you. I am fresh off the back in from Europe, as my attire would show. Hopefully you caught Mr. Chris Ryan, one of our famous co-hosts, just saying I look like I've been on holiday shopping in the souvenir shop. And of course, we're joined as always by Mr. Daryl Dennis Evans, aka Mukti. What's up, crew?
All good. How are you? How was your trip to sunny Germany? Was it sunny?
We're going to get to that. I just want to say to you, lads, I'm going to kick this off with, I'm going to pull on the heartstrings a little bit. I do think right now, this might be one of my favourite pieces of content that I create every week or so. Chatting to you lads, reconnecting with the youth, seeing those pearly teeth across from our middleman. I mean, those of you that are watching this on YouTube, please come with some, you need like those sunbed glasses on for them bad boys. But anyway, lads.
In real life.
Jesus Christ. Well, I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying doing this.
We're going to get the show sponsored by Ray-Ban just for me and Trottie.
At this stage, I don't care if we get a sponsor or not, because I'm just loving it. I'm enjoying it. You know what I mean? It's good fun.
It is good fun. It's good to catch up with you boys and talk. And I think we might do a little bit of reminiscing on this one as well.
Well, exactly. Well, we'll kick it off there, shall we? Actually, no. We'll kick it off with why I'm wearing this ridiculous outfit. This, of course, is my now second team official, FC Bayern Munich. That's where I was this week. I've signed 1,000 NDAs and I'm not very good at doing this, so I don't want to say too much about the trip. But the overview in general, I have spent a week in Germany, so we obviously have a lot to cover from the Super Bowl through to the Phoenix Open that just happened, finished yesterday. I was in an aeroplane for that. I was in an aeroplane for the Super Bowl. So apologies. Obviously, I represent America here. Probably got apologies, American guys, but you have me doing that. And I had to Google this morning who actually won the Super Bowl. So that was tragic. With that, though, I happened to stumble across a Liverpool result that I want to touch on, which was upsetting. And then on that, I was happy to find out that Wayne Rooney is no longer the manager down there. So at least that softened the blow of the Plymouth loss. Liverpool versus Plymouth in the FA Cup. Tragic, guys. Tragic.
Yeah, I have to say I was pretty disappointed to see a 1-0 loss against Championship strugglers Plymouth Argyle. I mean, I'm not even sure I actually know where Plymouth is. No disrespect to anybody from Plymouth, but I don't know where it is. So I was very disappointed to see that game go down the Swanee. And that means the quadruple's out of touch for Liverpool this year. And this is probably a good chance to do it this season. But I still think I would 100% take the Premier League and not bother about anything else. The Premier League's the one I want to win.
Yeah, and look, I mean, obviously I flicked through social media this morning with the jet lag, and Arne Slot said some great things about mental health preparation for the next games, things like that. I'm traveling on an aeroplane. You watch things like the Aaron Rodgers documentary. He's all on about that as well. But in other news, I did go to FC Bayern, and they won 3-0 against Weber, I think you say. 3-0 on Friday night. 75,000 people. What a stadium that is. Unbelievable.
Nice.
What are you wearing? Is that the second kit or third kit?
Mate. Third kit.
Golf kit.
Third kit. Look at this bad boy. This is a belter with the trefoil on there. In all fairness,
hang on a second, Troy. You're like anti-beige, and that top looks beige.
Just because I wanted it on for the whole purpose of this conversation, to be honest with you.
Because you are beige.
You don't have to confirm or deny this, but please tell me you have got full shorts, shin pads, boots, the lot.
Full kit wanker.
Yeah, damn right.
Do you know what I have got? Because I'm so into the whole thing right now, the Adidas vibe. I've got these, which were designed for the German team in the World Cup in like 19 whenever. And West Germany were like, we need a shoe that we can wear in the locker room and the shower. And that's where this slider was born. Obviously, Bubsy, you're the only one cool enough to rock some socks with it. I'm not going down that route, but I am fully Adidas pumped up and ready to go here.
So can you say much about why you went or who you went with?
I can say bits. Obviously, we do actually, as you lads know, we do have some great content coming from some interviews that I caught on campus. But I went over to the Adidas Herzo Campus, which is the global campus of Adidas. You realise what a powerful brand that is. Can you believe, even though they own TaylorMade Golf for the majority of my career at TaylorMade Golf, I never had the chance to actually go to the campus because I was always on tour, always traveling. When the tour went to Munich, it's 2 hours from Munich. I never made the commute. Tour event work, if you ever get to go to it and can imagine this when you work on the trucks. I know we had Sam Day on last week. Check that one out. But it's in and out. You go in, you do the work, you go to the restaurant, you go to the range. If you're lucky, you see a bit of the towns like Rome. You always make an effort to see that. Dubai, Asia. So you do see a bit, but on the same note, majority of it is in, do your job, get out. Mickey Fox, my man at the Belfry, do your job and fuck off. Good lad, Mickey. So there's a shout out for him. If he's still going, bless him, then that's awesome. I doubt he'll have an email address. That's a personal story from the boys. But basically, I went to the campus for stuff that I don't want to touch on yet because that's going to be coming. But to get a feel for the product and the actual DNA of that brand in person, unbelievable. Stayed in these little cabins where the German national team stay or Arsenal stay or whoever is sponsored by that team. Went on the training pitches where they go. There's like 7 or 8 buildings, 8 in the restaurants that are attached on campus. It was maybe, and I think this is not even a big call, but it was maybe the best trip I've had because I've been in the other end. I've been the one entertaining all this time. So to go on an event like that, to learn about things and learn about the product was maybe one of the best trips I've had in my career. And it was certainly a moment when you sit there and you're like, this is phenomenal, really good. I spent, there was a lot of people there from all over the world. I spent a lot of time, obviously, with the American boys. Brilliant. Some great guys there, like Golf in Your State was there. And Jacques Slade was there, who's a big sneaker guy. You'd like him, Bubsy, over here in LA. And had a cracking time with them. And then the team from Adi were just phenomenal. I mean, Joel, there's many of them, but Joel and his team to put that event on did fantastic. Obviously, German agency, so everything was running on time and flipping like proper, which was mint. But a lot of organisation, very good. And then at the game, towards the end of the trip, I ended up sitting next to, of course, the English lads. And I think I added at the time when I was drinking it, it was only, obviously I did dry January, as we know, we cover this all the time. So I got my first hangover of the year because we're now officially in February. But it came from sitting next to an English lad who I'd never met before, really nice guy. Shout out to Johnny, works for Golf Monthly. And we just started having a few beers, to be honest. And obviously they're the big German beers, and the lads behind Ollie and co from various companies over there were ripping and getting these beers for us. And I think it's going into the Dope Stroke top 10. To have a beer in the stand there, 75,000 people, it's freezing, but it doesn't feel cold. And it's just good old flipping British banter that is just so negative but funny. And obviously I'm now quite American, and these guys are just like pulling me down, and I'm not going there. And it was good crack. So shout out to the Golf Monthly boys. I enjoyed it with them. I think they've got some good careers ahead of them. Obviously, we were chatting on the bus home, trying to get away from a venue with 75,000 people is tricky. And I think I spoke for most of the hour trip home, much as the American crew have told me you didn't shut up on the way home last night, which is fair enough because I had a few beers and we were letting loose and going. But it was, I could just do this podcast on my own and keep going if you want. But in a nutshell, lads, great trip and phenomenal business. I mean, Daryl, you'd have loved it, in all seriousness. The CEO of Adidas spoke to us, inspirational bloke, to be fair. And even after he'd done his piece, he gave off the heart comment to the group. And that was good advice. You know, I'm a guy that's just finished a 30-40 minute presentation that was needed 20-minute presentation to talk about what he wanted to talk about. And then just to give something as he's walking off stage, you were like, hang on a minute, that's real. I can connect with that. I can use that in my own brands and own business. But it was great. And anyone listening to this that wants to learn more about that, there's going to be plenty more to come. Phenomenal trip.
Yeah, I think it's a great location, having been there and checked it out. And I actually love a large part of the origin story. For the listeners that aren't really aware of how the Adidas brand really became a mainstay, it's founded by a guy called Adolf Dassler, which is where Adidas comes from. And there were 2 brothers at the time. This is during sort of kind of just before and going through the World War II time period. The brothers had a dust up, and in Herzegovina, which is where the Adidas headquarters are, there's a river that goes through the town. And as the brothers fell out, one of the other brothers found a Puma across the other side of the river. So today you have Puma and Adidas as 2 mainstream sports brands, and they're headquartered in exactly the same town and founded as part of the exact same family. So it's a fascinating story, and I can certainly see how a CEO at Adidas could be super passionate about that, because there's a big culture dynamic there. It's like you're all in. It literally is all in. The impossible is nothing. All the phrases that we've come to know. From my experience, I can see it and I can believe it whenever they say it, because it just shines through their ecosystem. It's good. It's a good trip.
Yeah, I mean, mate, as you say, an inspirational trip, phenomenal. You leave there so embraced in the brand. We actually went into the archive there, and the stuff in the archive. You had to put these. I'm pretty certain I can say this. You had to put these gloves on. Not very many people get to go in. We're a select group. They keep it at a certain temperature. There's everything in there, from Klinsmann, Beckham, Beckenbauer, Rudy Voller. You can go as far back as you want to go, and then in there as well, Sandy Lyle's golf shoes from when he won that Masters. I mean, I'm holding those puppies, and this is immense. You know, even the history of that. Obviously, there's Langer stuff and things like that, but you don't realise. Like, I actually didn't know. I couldn't remember that Lyle was wearing those, and just different level. My old man had a pair of them. They weren't the best looking golf shoes, but he had a pair of them.
Actually, it's funny talking about history and everything. I think, Bubs, you've been somewhere pretty sacred in the hearts of our careers. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so I had to go to the Belfry today, and I've not been there that much at all in the last, I want to say 3 to 4 years, maybe a handful of times. But for people who know us, they'll know the connection. But for anyone who doesn't, that was where we all met many, many years ago, early 2000s, I think 2001. That was where we all kind of our paths crossed for the first time, and it's very, very different today. So I had to go back to do something with TaylorMade, just very brief little job, but they were launching their new performance lab, which is open. It's super impressive. You boys will know that room very well. Looks a lot different now to what it did back in the day, but they've just rebranded it. They've put a gear system in there. They've got, you know, all the players up on the wall, and it's just a super impressive place. So Nick Doherty was there. He was getting fitted into his new gear for this year. So they were kind of doing that. There was a big bow, and he cut the ribbon, and they kind of launched the room, and I had to go down to get a few images done. But I mean, that place is just, I mean, steeped in history when you think of the big golf tournaments that have been there, and the big golf tournaments that continue to be there. But honestly, boys, as soon as you pull in that drive, you would not recognise it. Well, I know, Darryl, you've been a few times, but Trottie, you'd be like, what is this place? Like, on the left-hand side, there is the biggest building you've seen in your life going up. I mean, it's nearly finished, and it's so impressive. Like, the chipping green outside the academy has now got a go-kart track around the outside of it.
No, has it really?
I mean, they are really pushing this kind of golf, yes, but this family experience. You know, there's like a playground, there's like a nature trail, there's a go-kart track. They are just rebuilding the spa, putting in like water slides and all sorts. I mean, it's a huge operation at the moment, but it's just always good to go back there. I mean, it brings back a lot of memories, a lot of good memories, a lot of memories of meeting great friends and great people.
I'm not sure what you're going to say then.
Yeah,
it's
me
just
neither.
super. Like,
let me ask you the go-kart track then. It's like a kid's go-kart track, because it's not a big chipping green, that.
No, so they've basically put like a track around the outside of the chipping green, and then they've got these kind of pedal on go-karts.
Okay.
But I mean, you could do it for kids and adults, but you'll remember from back when we were there, corporate is big there.
Yeah.
You know, and it's obviously they have these big function rooms, corporate. To have a breakout from that and then go and do some go-karting or go and do some golf is you know, one of the big selling points. So, I mean, for anyone who doesn't know the Belfry, it's massive for golf. It's massive for just hotel stays, but it's also massive for business and corporate events, and it's just a huge facility.
So what's on the left side if you stood coming out of the academy on the left now, where that big putting green was?
So that is the go-kart bit. That's where.
Okay, that's where they've done. So that is big. Okay.
But they've also got, because of what they do there, they've got this like freestanding bar that's like locked at the moment.
Oh, wow.
And it's one of those like the front falls down and you can serve. So it's a very. I mean, anybody who has never been, but is a golfer, could well think Belfry, Ryder Cups, European Tour events. This must be like you've got to wear a collar. You know, you can't wear this. It is the furthest from that. You know, anything goes. I mean, you've got people there on a holiday. You've got the people there with conferences. Yes, you've got people playing golf. You've got the academy, the driving range. It's just like a juggernaut in the golf world. It's massive.
So, who owns it now? Do you boys know?
It's independently owned.
Isn't I thought it was connected to Morgan Stanley, right? I'm not sure.
Well, I was chatting to Chris, and he was saying they're independent venue. So they might be owned by whoever, but he said they're not like part of a chain.
Okay. Yeah.
And then next question then, because I actually did see your IG stories on that, which gave anyone, I don't know, you obviously won't get it time to listen to this, but it gave a good perspective of this building that they're making on the left as you walk in. And Chris was saying it's a corporate hospitality, so they've moved the food and beverage over to there. So now I guess the PGA, for those of you that remember it, PGA of Europe, UK, sits less or another function room. But on the side that I couldn't see on your story, which is the side that obviously looks over the tent, I assume that's all open glass windows and balconies. And like, did you even see it?
Didn't see it, but that is, so there are, don't quote me on this, 150 rooms in that building. So
Okay.
a lot of the rooms are on that other side. So you will have an incredible view of the tent now. You know, obviously big glass windows. Don't think they've got balconies, but you'll be able to stand there, and if you're third floor, you'll have an incredible view of the tent. And
so my follow-on question is: any rumours of tour events going back there?
Well, they've got the Masters there again this year, not the Masters, the British Masters. That is last week of August, I think. And that's a pretty strong field. I don't think it's a Rolex event, is it, Daryl?
No, it's not. It's a standard.
No, but it's a relatively strong field, because I think they always get a host. I think it was Faldo last year, and I think it's been Matt Wallace. And those guys have got some pull in the golf industry, so they can lean on their friends, and they get a pretty strong field. I don't think it's like a Rolex event, but you look across the DP World Tour, and it's one of the strongest fields, and it's an iconic golf course. Four-time Ryder Cup host, and we know it like the back of our hands.
We do.
I wonder if it'll ever get a Ryder Cup again. I mean, I know that's a huge expense, but it would be nice for nostalgia, and it's a good match play course.
It's a good venue, though. Is it like everything about it? It's close to the airport. It's the internal infrastructure for everyone, the fans. It's all on site. And I don't think that there's that many locations and venues that have all of it. But also it's difficult. It's been there 4 times already. Are they likely to have another one? Maybe not. But could they host another big event? Like, obviously, you think about yesteryear, Volvo World Match Play, stuff like that. Could that be the type of event that goes there? Maybe. I mean, it's definitely deserving of big tournaments in my view.
But sport is changing, isn't it? Because you look at different sports. You go back 20 odd years when it was last there before. It was a bit like, okay, we've got a Ryder Cup. Which venue is going to be really good to host it? And you look at like the FIFA World Cup. It's like, okay, we need to host a World Cup. Which country is going to be ideal to host it? It's not like that anymore. You've now got nation states going, we want the Ryder Cup, or we want the World Cup, and whatever you need us to build, we'll build. I mean, you look at Celtic Manor, a purpose-built golf course for that. You look at Rome. It's gone from what venue is suitable to who's going to pay us enough money to have it, and then they'll just build whatever they need to build to make it happen.
How do you feel about that?
I mean, to a certain extent, I guess it's got to happen, because if it wasn't like that, we wouldn't be able to get as many people in to view it. We wouldn't get the spectacle we get. So I think, I mean, football, golf is so big now, these big events, it almost has to be done that way. I just think that we've got to make sure that those venues, when they are purpose-built, they're not wasted afterwards, and it's not just left to, certainly not in the golf industry, but I know that they did some pretty impressive stuff in the World Cup where the stadiums were taken down and repurposed. So I think they've got to think ahead a little bit for that.
Wasn't that only the one that was built out of the containers that was that?
Maybe.
We were having this exact conversation with, I can't remember who last week, some of the guys from Adidas, and it was talking about how well UK did with the stadiums from the Olympics, and they're now used, I believe. Qatar came up for the one in the tank, in the containers that was taken down. Obviously, America for the next World Cup, they're having to change some of their stadiums a little bit. Like the final was meant to be in LA at the SoFi there. That's now been moved to New York because there wasn't enough room around the edge of the pitch. Based on playing NFL there, you don't need the same sort of room. Then we did a stadium tour at Bayern, and they were talking about how that stadium can be changed in order to cater for different sports, because they hold NFL games there too. So I think the modern day stadium can be adjusted, but it's definitely something to be considered. If you look at Celtic Manor, you mentioned that, great venue, but on the same note, not drawing the same pull as a Belfry. I mean, you go to the UK and you leave London and you're a golfer, Belfry's kind of your one-stop shop. But they've now gone and stuck wedding venues and conference rooms on maybe one of the most famous nightclubs just outside of Birmingham. I mean, what's happened to that place then? Gone.
Well, I mean, there's been some interesting nights out in there by the three of us over the years. We should probably save that for an X-rated podcast, but nonetheless, in some ways, it was probably needed that it changed into something else.
Physically, it's gone, but it's still in here.
It's still in there. It's still a memory. It's still a memory.
It's where it should stay.
Fantastic. So then it brings us to golf in the US and iconic venues. Like I say, I didn't see as much of it as I would have liked because I was very much in the moment. And I think that tells you the level of trip I was on if you are actually not living on the phone. And when you get to a different time zone of your home time zone, you're in the moment. That's a sign of a good trip. But Phoenix Waste Management, cracking event, obviously a lot of noise around it. Jordan, I know there was a clear winner. I get it. But Jordan Spieth, I mean, go on, Spiethy boy, back in the mixer.
Well, it's good to see his name up there. What do you think, Bubs? Did you manage to watch much?
Yeah, I've followed it a little bit. Two reasons. One, it's an iconic event, really, with what happens to the crowds and the 16th. But also, the strength of the field pulls me in. But there was kind of four stories, really. There was obviously the winner, Thomas Dietrich, big win. I think we'll touch on that a little bit. But as you say, Spieth kind of up there. I think he finished T4. And then you've got Daniel Berger, who, big sort of injury, a lot of time out for the game. He might have been T4 as well, maybe in T2. So that was a good story. And then T2. And then Justin Thomas, not as big a story because he has been sort of trending. I know you spoke to some of the clip data on a previous podcast. You thought he was going to do well this year, but good to see him back up there. But it was just an interesting event. And Scotty Scheffler, 31 out on Sunday, 4 under, 41 in. I mean, what's going on there? When has Scotty Scheffler got 41 on a back nine?
Yeah, something's gone on there. Every one of my clip predictions, all of them T25, all of them, except for one who just made the cut. I mean, it's a fine line, isn't it? I mean, obviously this week to pick the winner, Dietrich from nowhere, really. I haven't got the clip data on him, but I don't think his form was fantastic. He was tipped to be an absolute gamer years ago, so this is long overdue, to be honest with you. But I had no clue where he was at in terms of what he was wearing and who his corporate partners were and what he looked like. So for me, that was all like, okay, he's changed a bit since I last saw him. A name that I think is worth an honourable mention is your countryman, Dazzler. He's doing all right, Poseidon, isn't he? He's kicking around.
Yeah,
he's kicking around. He's not scared.
He's not scared. He's been playing PGA Tour now for several years. He's been in and around top 50 in the world for most of that time. I mean, he's a good player. He is solid. I'd like to see him contend a little bit more in the majors. He's a really nice guy. Get on really well with him. And I think based on his story and his background, I think it would be a great one to see him actually come through and win a couple of titles. I think it'd be great. But I'd like to see him contend a bit more in the majors. So let's see if this is going to be the year. I don't know. But the Thomas Dietrich one, just to go back to that for a moment, I find that quite interesting because obviously you got Pavon last year that sort of came through the ranks on the PGA Tour. It does sort of highlight to me that there is, I know the PGA Tour has a lot of strength and has a lot of strength in depth, but I look at the European Tour and I think, there are some good players that are coming through that are proper ballers. They can golf that ball. And I want to see these guys thrive in a lot more of these bigger tournaments. And hopefully, a bit like how Seve kind of changed the game a little bit in yesteryear, where he came through, started winning, and then all of a sudden loads of Europeans started to win on that side of the pond. I'd like to see more of that. Just a more international win base is what I'd like to see on the PGA Tour. Maybe Dietrich's going to be part of that mix.
Yeah, but stay calm on it. I mean, you've got to, if you dive into this,
I'm just passionate about European golf, aren't I?
I understand, but you also have to see the wood for the trees here because you've got Rasmus Højgaard, who's finished T12, and he shot a last round 71. So just because he hasn't gone lights out last round, otherwise he'd have been right in the mix. He's young. Then above him, you've got Bobby Mack. I mean, Bobby Mack is really doing well for the Europeans. Also inside the top 10, Højgaard just outside. But I think that there's two young guys. They're flying the flag. And then the winner has been a long time coming for Dietrich, but 65 last lap. I mean, and then obviously sticking it there on 16 as well in that moment. I just think it's good. I think, again, living in the moment, doing it, getting it done at a tough venue.
I want to ask Darryl, was Dietrich on tour or breaking through when you were on tour? Did you
Yes.
have much doing? Because I was doing a bit of research on him, for this, and I remember seeing him back on European tour when it was that, and I remember thinking, geez, this guy's got a phenomenal golf swing. But over the years on the European tour, he got a bit of a reputation of getting himself into contention and not getting it over the line. They were talking to that a little bit on the coverage, and saying, how was he going to fare? Did you see much of him when you were on tour?
Yeah, I've been able to see quite a lot of Dietrich over the years. I think he's always been good. And I don't think that anybody in sort of my environment out there would argue anything but that, to be honest. It's just, as Trottie says, it was, when is his time coming? Maybe this is the beginning of his time to really come through. The first Belgian player to win on the PGA Tour. That's a pretty cool accolade for himself and his country. But yeah, I think he's always been good. Great swing, good temperament, good player, but doesn't win as often as he should. And talking about other winners, you look at Hao Tong Lee winning in Qatar last week as well. He obviously slumped out for a little while, and now he's come back. So I do always think that classic phrase, "the cream always rises to the top." Are we seeing a little bit of that at the moment? I'd like to think so, just looking at it through a positive lens. So yeah, he's always been good, Bubs, if that answers your question.
Hao Tong's a legend, by the way, and that golf course is good.
Yeah,
that golf course is written. Par threes at that golf course, so difficult. I've actually got a lot of good stories and good times at that golf course. I managed to work Woosnam there, and it was Woozy was struggling like with metal woods and kept talking to me about how he was so much better with persimmon. It was one of the first places I ever got to work with him. And then Van der Velde, I was working with him there. Obviously, the guy that just had the shocker down 18 at Carnoustie, and it was one of the best iron displays I'd ever seen. Joachim Hegman won there years and years ago. One of the first players' bags I've been involved with winning. All started in Qatar, and I actually led a qualifier to get into that tournament once with about 12 holes to go, and ended up shooting 768. It was fantastic. And then the guy that won it was a former Rookie of the Year on the European Tour, and he comes up to me, this Scottish guy, and he says, "How much money you got in your bank account?" And I'm like thinking, dude, I've just stayed next to a mosque for 3 days to be here, and I'm pissed off right now. I'm like, yeah, I'm not a wealthy guy. And he's like, "You play golf as if you're a millionaire." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he went, "You went for the pin on 10 that was not a go green light pin. You went straight for the pin after bogeying 10 on 11, made double. Game over at that point, but you decided to go for the pin on 12, 13, 14, 15 and 16, and at that point you were done." So he said, so all you had to do really when you're in contention is hit the middle of the green. He's like, the sooner you learn that, you'll have more money than what's in your bank account right now. Obviously, I never learnt that, which is why I'm now talking to you characters.
How many years ago was that?
It still hurts now. It was about flipping ages ago. I still wake up at night with cold sweats.
Because on a podcast in Series 1, you were talking about how recently you play golf and went for every flag. I mean, have you not learned?
No. That's why we had to do the decade stuff. And my clip data, I've been studying that. I can tell you that I can't hit right flags. I found a new section in clip, and on the enhanced, on a right flag, I'm not your man at all. I'm not your guy. But 180 yards and out, and I've got this video coming out with Tiger. I'll give you a little bit of a teaser, right? And we talk about lie angles in the long irons. I don't know when I'm going to put this out yet, but it's so good. And he talks to me about speed, early extension, which is when you stand up a little bit out the club, the strength of your body, and how over time it changes. So 7-woods and hybrids, he doesn't use them, but he understands why they're having this place today in the game. Then he talks about how he's gone to a utility driving iron, and his 4-iron and the utility play a more upright lie angle based on his weaknesses in his body as to where he's at with age compared to when he was younger. And obviously, whenever you do something with him, I walked away and I started noodling on this idea, and we filmed it in Florida. As soon as I got back, I was like diving into the data, which is how I came to find this clip section that Dan Davis went through with me. And I was like, so 180 yards and out, I miss right, but everything else, my tendency is missing left. Man, I was straight on bending those long irons. I'm like, Tiger, I'm going to bend these long irons now, mate. Class. But I mean, talk about like information and the thinking behind why he does it. And then anyone who listens and follows to me knows I'm a big one for data. And then obviously if that is then saying that you need to confirm this, then frick, I was straight on the Lost and Line machine. Let's get this done, boys. So it's good. I haven't got enough rounds yet to tell you if it's truly coming through, but certainly they're a bit more upright than the shorts.
I want to go back to Haotong for a second here. Do you remember that story, just as a little chuckle side note for us, where he got pissed off about something playing golf on one of the tournaments he was at? He chucked his putter into the lake, which was then floating on the top of the water, and his mum went in to go and get it. Do you remember that? You don't remember that?
No, I remember him coming onto the truck, and it was around the time of The Hangover, or he was big into the film The Hangover, and his English sounded so much like the little fella that's the Thai guy, and he just kept coming on and saying all the one-liners off The Hangover, and the truck was creasing up. And obviously there's a lot that I don't want to repeat them that are rude, but he'd come on, and the one about the satchel or the handbag or something, and he's like, is it a satchel or a handbag? It's like hilarious. This Chinese fella walking around ripping everyone thinking he's off The Hangover. I mean, what a funny guy. Really funny guy.
Absolutely.
And then he'd try and get the banter, wouldn't he? He kept having like more and more British caddies. Like I remember he had one of the Geordie lads caddying for him. Good lad, this lad. And, you know, just how he must have fought. And I was listening because they were getting the mics right in his bag, weren't they, for the Qatar? And he's got the South African caddying for him. And each of them are calling each other Brew. Hey, Brew. Hey, Brew. Just a Chinaman calling a Sapper a Brew. I was like, Jesus Christ. It was funny. It was funny. It was good.
Just on that, though, the DP World Tour put a clip on their Instagram, and I shared it on my story, so it was really interesting. He's hitting this, he's going for the green on a par 5. I don't know which hole it was or what round it was, but it's the back and forth between him and his caddy.
Yeah, I saw this.
It's brilliant because, you know, I think certainly with my coaching, you know, I work with a lot of amateurs, and they kind of have this like incorrect belief that like you should just walk up to your ball and you should be like, right, I've got to hit this, I've got to be super focused on what I want to do. They were talking about like, what if I can't make that carry? And what if I hit it left? And what if I hit it right? And where am I going to miss it? And I'm like, that's how you play golf. Like you assess all the options. You know, you go, what's going to happen if I pull it off? If I don't pull it off, where's it likely to be? What's that going to leave me? But then when you go ahead and decide on the shot, then you're all in. Then you're like fully committed, all in that one. But I just thought it was really interesting. They were discussing all the negatives.
They were. And I thought it was interesting that he clearly he's had a bit of a rough time, Haotong. Like he was a bit of a gamer coming out the gate. Then he disappeared a bit. Then he went away and got like big into his strength stuff. Then he came back. So he's been up and down. And I was like, wow, there's a few holes here mentally that he's struggling with. And I thought the bagman, when he gives it like, there was 3 options on that shot from what I was understanding. And the caddy basically said to him, like, we're not here to finish anywhere else than first. Like, why are you talking about that, like that negative that you're bringing in? I understand it, but don't give it any more energy because that is going to really hinder us. Like our goal here is to hit this on the target, which I don't even think was the green. Can't remember, but it's worth finding. Stick it down in the description or something. But the bottom line is I get what you're saying, and I took a lot from that. Like the caddy was good. You can't be giving the negatives too much energy, and you have to focus on what a toward mindset and a good outcome is, bringing it back to Lee Crumbleholm, which again, we'll stick that down in the description, because if anyone is catching on to this thing that they're liking the mental side, Lee covered some fantastic stuff. He's working with Paul Waring. I saw they were out there this week at the Waste, obviously miscut, I think, for Paul. Don't quote me on that, I'll check it, but not the week he wanted, but I mean, the Wirral boys are over here. Let's see you next week. I'll be down at Tory, so I'm looking forward to seeing him.
Talking about other future events, today's been a bit of a breaking news story related to the Open Championship, where they've now made it so the top player on the LIV rankings, not otherwise exempt, inside the top 5 on the order of merit, will be able to play in the Open Championship at Royal Portrush this year. This obviously follows suit from what happened last week, related to the US Open. Similar scenario there, although I think it was the top 3, not otherwise exempt. Oh, sorry, top player inside the top 3, not otherwise exempt. So there's clearly a bit of a movement right now of players looking to get more and more starts that are playing on LIV, getting into the majors. I mean, this is quite a shift, right? To me, I don't know, the optimist, I feel like I'm having an optimist day today. this feels like, are we close to some big news with PJ Tour and LIV Golf, and maybe a coming together of, I guess, of all of these tours? What do you guys think?
I'm surprised that it's only one place, if I'm honest. That the fields over there on the LIV are strong, and obviously there'll be some that are exempt from previous open wins, like someone like Cam Smith. But yeah, I'm surprised there's only one. But it was always going to happen, because these majors are standalone events, right? They sit on both PJ Tour and the DP World Tour, but they are their own entity. They are going to want the strongest field because they're all about exposure, bringing people in to watch, bringing people in to watch on TV. And if they are thinking there is going to be 2 to 3 players over on LIV Tour who have got some pull, they're going to be like, we want them in our event.
So how many players do you think, obviously it's a top player, not otherwise already exempt, how many players do you think that should really be?
How many are going to be exempt? Is it just previous winners like Cam Smith?
Cam Smith, John Rahm will be there. DeChambeau, obviously winning last year. There's definitely a handful of players, Brooks Koepka, that are eligible to play majors this year.
I'm surprised they haven't gone, the top 3 or the top 5 that aren't eligible. One's a bit, I don't know, it's a bit like a token gesture. It just feels a bit like one player.
Is it a start, though? Is it a starting point?
It is. But I mean, it just feels to me like that event that tour, it's snowballing. It's gathering momentum. There's more people watching it. There's more talk about it. They've got some incredible players. It just feels a bit like, okay, to say if you're not exempt, the top 1 player is going to play in the Open.
Do you have the actual data on that, though? Like, if you got the viewing date, are there more people watching this thing? Is it, like, obviously, as we sat down and spoke to Evan from Full Swing, the viewing numbers on that had absolutely gone beyond their estimation. So he was very stoked with progress of the TGL. So I get it. I get what you're saying. Or is it just because your algorithm's throwing it up? Because I'm not watching. I haven't seen anything of LIV. I obviously know that Bryson took himself off to India, which I thought was great. But having been to India for the tournaments there, it's just not great. It's not Phoenix Waste Management. You know what I mean? No. It's good. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm stoked for golf going there, and I'm all for that. But mate, it's a funny old place for a golf tournament.
I think that's me anecdotally saying it's gathering. I've not seen data, but I mean, I to this day don't think I've watched a LIV event. I've maybe followed it a little bit on socials, but
there you go.
I just signed a big deal to have it on TV over here on ITV.
Mm-hmm. Have they? Didn't know that.
Shown on ITV, which is
it's not full live broadcast though. It's a lot of it is highlights with a couple of the events will have 1 day worth of live broadcast. So it's not the full package that you would assume it to be. It's on ITVX, which is for the international listeners of this. It's an app-based program like Netflix or Amazon Prime,
it's okay,
for example. It is okay, but what I'm trying to say is that it's not the live TV version that we've come to know ITV for in the UK. But I still strongly believe it's a step in the right direction for LIV. They'll get a lot more British-based eyeballs watching that for sure. What that'll actually mean in their total viewership numbers will be interesting. All I have is data from when LIV first was incepted, and the average PGA Tour event at that time had 1.6 million views per event, and LIV was trending at about 1.1 million views per event at that time. But don't forget, like everyone talks about, there's not a major broadcast deal in the States, or there wasn't at the time. Same thing in the UK, but in places like South Africa, Supersport, which is a massive sports channel in South Africa, has had LIV Golf coverage from the very beginning. So in South Africa, LIV Golf and the Stinger GC team, they are real popular in that part of the world. And that's what you can't discount. Like, there's all these other variables internationally that do make a difference. I can tell.
The Sydney Stinger team from South Africa.
You know the Sydney Stinger, mate. It's an important feature of one's life. That's for the X-rated.
I don't know what it is podcast. With you South Africans and the Stinger.
Gamers, aren't we? That's how we do it.
I need to backtrack because I made a bit of an error here. So I said one place wasn't that much, but Lloyd, as is the Lloyd he is, doing all the work in the background, has just listed the players that are exempt for the Open. There's a lot. So you got Phil Mickelson, Louis Oosthuizen, Cam Smith, Henrik Stenson, John Rahm, DeChambeau, Brooks, Tyrrell, Joachim Neiman, Mark Leishman. So there's and Tommy Kibben. So you got about 12 already. So to give one more place actually I was thinking exempt was going to be maybe 3 or 4 players, but actually there's going to be probably 12 that are exempt.
Wonder how Leash and McKibben get in. I mean, you could go on forever. Leishman, I wonder how he's getting in.
I'm not sure on Leishman, but McKibben gets in because he was top 30 on the Order of Merit on the European Tour last year. So top 30, not players that are inside the top 30, not otherwise exempt, get a spot in the Open Championship from the European Tour. That's how he gets in.
Maybe they just give out like good lad spots. Leishman would be up a good lad spot for sure. He'd get that.
We'll have one then, won't we?
Yeah.
And at least he's a better lad than us, to be fair.
Can I just ask you about the sort of the same sort of thing, but not quite, the Charlie Hoffman letter that was like one of these open letters, which basically means that I want everyone to see this. If you didn't see it, he basically said, he didn't mention any names, but there's some people who think he was talking about them. He was basically saying there's people out there who are actively pushing PGA Tour. He was talking about Rory, I think, saying Rory's big on PGA Tour, don't go to LIV, we've got to support the tour. And then he said, but there's these people who are pro PGA Tour going off playing Race to Dubai, playing exhibition matches in Vegas, playing TGL events that aren't PGA Tour. And he basically said, if they're really that keen on promoting the PGA Tour and building the PGA Tour up, they should be scrapping those and actually playing some of the smaller events on the PGA Tour, because that's the only way it's going to grow, is to get those fields stronger. He's actually got a point, I kind of think.
Yeah, he does have a point. I don't think he's out and out, far out the box there. But I think part of the problem is that there's just so many events anyway. The normal 4-day... There's so what I mean is it dilutes certain tournaments. I almost feel like a more concentrate. I don't think you should lose a lot of the other formats of the game, but if you look at the hardcore PGA Tour format, 72 holes cut after 36, I feel like those are quite oversubscribed. And actually, if you had less of them, you'd get more of the better players competing in those events because there's less options to play. So provide the players with less options. But if you look at places like the European Tour, for example, another tour that has a lot of events, you know, the European Tour have 2 core requirements to their members. 1 is to create more playing opportunities, and 2 is to increase prize funds. So the way to do that is really to do more tournaments. So I feel like it's a difficult balance to get right. I don't think I've actually got a really solid solution, but I definitely think that the 72-hole format, there's just a little bit too many events. And it's making it more cluttered for other formats of the game, would be my view.
Rory came back anyway, though, and said the European Tour is owned partly by the PGA Tour and TGL is owned by the PGA Tour, so I don't really know what to tell you. I mean, he's Rory McIlroy. He's got to play in all these places. Did you see on that the viewing numbers for Pebble, because it was him and it was Pebble, were like off the charts compared to previous tournaments?
Yeah, I can believe it. I know he's a draw. I know he's a pull. I get that. I probably would have liked him to be a little bit more balanced in a lot of his views. But you know what? If he's got an opinion, just say your opinion. I don't really have a problem with that. I'm just not sure.
He does that. He says
he does that. Yeah, and that's why I think that's a large part of the reason why he has such a hardcore following, is because people like the fact that he has an element of honesty. I might want to see him be balanced, but in reality, if you look at the world, they quite like polarizing views right now. And if his does appear to do that and it wins over a fan base, good luck to
him. Interesting stat there that Lloyd's thrown in. CBS drew 3.3 million viewers this year, which was the best since Spieth made a run at the Win in 2019 before finishing third, 4.2 million. Final round. That's all final round. So he's got to be talking Phoenix as well there, I think. There's a lot of people.
I feel like one of us should step off and Lloyd can do this podcast. He's better than all of us.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah. I mean, pretty much. What about, so the final thing I want to close on then, and it's more a question because I haven't kept up with it and I could Google it, but I'm asking you lads. What's going on with the Ryder Cup and qualifying for that through LIV? Has there been any chats about that with all these announcements of majors? Because, mate, if we don't have the boys there, we're going to get hammered.
No, there's no real major news there. I had a conversation with Guy Kinnings. Guy Kinnings is the CEO, or he's the now CEO of the European Tour, or DP World Tour. I get that wrong every time. Can't quite let go of the European Tour. But he said, look, if anyone wants to play in the Ryder Cup, there's only 2 core requirements they must have. A, they must be a member of the DP World Tour, and B, they must represent a European country, and that's it. So any of these LIV golfers, like John Rahms of the world, for example, they've still got membership of the DP World Tour, and that currently makes them eligible. So until they make a change, if they make a change to allow LIV players as part of that dynamic, then that's just is what it is.
So and how many events can Rahm play? Can he play as many as he wants on the European Tour, or does he have to get a release from LIV?
He still has to get a release. If he plays in a DP World Tour, he doesn't have to get a release from LIV, because on the LIV side, you're only basically contracted to the tournament weeks for LIV. Outside of those weeks, it's your choice to play wherever you choose to play, which is not the same the other way around. So if you're a member of the DP World Tour, regardless...
No, let's stop this. We're calling it European Tour. We're old.
Great.
We're not calling it DP World. We're not doing that. Let's just remember who we are and where we came from. We're calling it the European Tour. Carry on.
Great. I'm super happy with that.
I don't want you to call it DP World. Someone did it to me last week. I'm like,
European
shut
Tour.
up. Go what you want. It's European freaking Tour. Go on.
Thank you. All right. So if you play on the European Tour, regardless as to whether you're intending on playing an event, or even if you are eligible to play in a European Tour event, you still have to ask for a release to play in any other tour event globally. And that's what's different. So the case is in, say, guys like John Rahm, for example, they have obviously been issued with fines and they've been issued with suspensions, but they don't have to be fulfilled yet until it's gone through appeal. So while it's going through appeal, he can still play European Tour events. That's why he ended up playing the Dubai Desert Classic this year, because there's no infringement while it's going through appeal. So it's quite complicated, but that's essentially what it boils down to.
So sorry, mate. Bottom line is he can make this team if he really wants to.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, Hatton's in prime position.
Go and play some events.
Hatton wins Dubai Desert Classic. I mean, he's in a great position. So depending on his particular situation, if he ends up winning another one or two events before anything actually happens, he could technically be eligible to play in the Ryder Cup. What's unique about the Ryder Cup from a European perspective is that it's a massive money earner for the European Tour. So that, if you think about it, it gets played on European soil every 4 years. And that's when the European Tour cash in, which ultimately, not quite fully, but it pretty much funds the European Tour for the following 4 years thereafter. Whereas on the US side, it's not quite the same organization setup. Don't get me wrong, it's still commercially lucrative for America, no question about that. But to Europe, it's a really important tournament on their schedule. So it is in the European Tour's best interests to make sure that the matches are competitive, to make sure that they got the best possible players available. So it would be a bit disappointing if they were unable to play John Rahm, Hatton, and others that could make the team moving forward, in my view.
So let me just clarify. You have to be a member of the European Tour.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I get that, and I'm playing devil's advocate here, but I mean, let's take someone like Thomas Dietrich, right? He's got his PJ Tour card, 18th green. He's got his 2 kids there with him, and he's got his wife with him. If he goes, right, I'm playing European Tour, I get my PJ Tour card, I'm going to move the family over there, I'm going to go all in the PJ Tour. Is he then? He can't qualify for the Ryder Cup. That just seems
unlikely. Yeah,
it seems a bit wrong. So he has to play how many events on the DP?
Minimum of 4 events outside of majors.
It just feels a bit like, I'm not saying either's right or wrong, but it's like he can't then go fully all in on his career, because in the back of my mind, he's like, there's an event in 2 years' time that I might play in, so I've got to keep half an eye on. It just feels a little bit. Strange, really.
It's not the first time though. Trottie might be able to correct me on the player, but I'm pretty sure it was Paul Casey. So Paul Casey went over to the US, joined the PJ Tour, reneged his membership of the European Tour, and that made him ineligible to play in the Ryder Cup. And this was pretty much during his prime years. So I get your point. I get your sentiment. I guess from the European Tour's perspective, it's a European Tour product. So therefore, they have to push their agenda, perceived to be doing so.
And I suppose if you're in the race to qualify, you're probably going to be playing the 4 majors. So then it's only another 3 or 4 events outside of that. So I suppose it's not too bad. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It just feels a bit like someone like him can't go all in PJ Tour because he's got to keep one foot in the in the DP World Tour.
Because you would kind of think it should be a bit different now, because as Rory's saying, PJ Tour own a stake in the European Tour.
Yeah,
so I don't know, maybe there's more conversations that are currently happening behind the scenes, but from my understanding, from those conversations I've had with the tour, those are the only two requirements you have to fulfill your opportunity to play in the Ryder Cup. That's it.
But let's be honest, the European Tour, as we've just said here in the last 10 minutes, if it doesn't do this, no one's going to play. Because you can live in Texas and be 2 hours to east and west coast, granted a bit more than that, but you can make your life a lot easier. Pay taxes in Texas, well, whatever, not in Texas, but that's your home state. It just makes life a lot easier.
I asked Sam about this, Trottie, last week because you weren't on it, and I was saying, Rory hasn't, over the last few years, probably got as many majors as he'd like. He'd probably hoped to rack up another couple. And I was saying, he's part of the reason that they play the Tour Championship in September. Then Scotty Scheffler has 3 months completely off, whereas Rory finishes Tour Championship straight over to Wentworth. Then he plays the Alfred Dunhill. Then he goes and plays Dubai. And that's him keeping his tour card on the European Tour, but is that impacting him coming into the following season where he hasn't had 3 months downtime like Scotty Scheffler has?
I think it's a care. I need to be, I guess I can say it, but statistically, he's never done great on the West Coast, has he? Now he's just won at Pebble, but he's coming in with a set of golf clubs that are his gamer set of golf clubs. So when is he meant to take time to get used to the new woods and stuff like that? And then obviously I didn't see Scotty's driver stats, but when are you switching it? He's had an injury, remember? So maybe that's why we haven't seen him so much this off-season. There's a lot. I mean, doesn't this whole subject just bring it to there's a lot to take on board? And I feel like we've all got a long history in the golf industry and we've really dissected that there. And if we were running this, we're still the only thing we've established is don't call it the DP World Tour, call it the European Tour.
Please.
We've all unanimous on that.
Yep.
And that's all we got out of that. Well done.
Thanks. Little Volvo logo. That's what we need now. Volvo European Tour, gold iconic.
You love Volvo. I mean, I get it. You got to sell the icon.
Yeah.
Nah, I wouldn't. European Tour. The Sevi icon for sure. European Tour. Done.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Game on.
Anyways, another good thing is I feel like we added a beer into the top 10 list. I've got some guests coming, like I teased earlier, and I think one of the guests two potentially get on the list, but there were some horrific answers to that. But, we've got to put these in order. We've still got the Alex Ferguson beer. We've still got the Ferry beer. We've got the Ozone Bar in Hong Kong. We've got the Honeymoon beer. We've got the Castle Lager and Table Mountain. We've got Lee Crumbleholm on the Victory Salute there in Villamora. And we've got Guinness, which was Evan El Sadden, or Tequila, and it was pre-game at the week 2 of the Full Swing. So we've got a few good ones. And, of course, Will Zalatoris, US Junior winning moment, and Scott Fawcett. So we've got some good ones. I think we've got to get that little bit official. I think Lloyd does a bit of homework for you there. I want a little icon that we can put up so we can keep this going.
Have we had any emails, Daryl?
No, to be quite frank. But I had a conversation with Tom LeBom. I'm not sure if you know him, Bubs, but he worked with us out on the European Tour. Definitely don't say his name in the airport. That'll get you into a world of bother. That's a whole other story. But he reckons he's got a really good beer story. So I'm calling him out now, putting him under pressure to send us through an email. And Tom the Bomb, all you got to do is go on to hello@dopestroke.com, send us an email with your beer story, and we might mention you because you're a good lad. If we don't mention you, it's because we've changed our mind.
If people actually want to hear from Tom the Bomb, he's got a good fitting business as well. He's a good fitter, good lad. We could have him on without question. So if you want more on that, then dial that one in as well. Bubsy, we'll let you take us home, my friend.
Well, I'm just going to do a quick little shout out to someone who I know listens and someone that you two both know. So he sent me a message the other day saying it was a good podcast. Bondi.
Yeah, Jesus. Go on, Bondi.
About all the Belfry lads. The only good story I've got on him that I can tell is there was a speed camera next to the Aston Villa training ground that was next to the Belfry, and they put this speed camera in while we all lived there. By the way, there's many good Bondi stories. This is the only one we can tell. And this lad went out and he said he'd been driving past this speed camera, and I think it was a 40 or a 50 mile an hour road, and he'd been testing to see what the speed was that the camera would go off. And he felt like he'd gone through this thing. Let's say it's 50. He felt like he'd gone through it at 65 and he hadn't gone off. So he's like, it's bollocks. It doesn't work. I'm going to go through it at 100. And he did, and of course it went off. It was a legend.
funny.
He never got a mail. He never got a letter though. So he's like, it's not capturing. It's just there for, for flashing purposes.
No camera in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
No film.
Brilliant. Anyways, if you want to know more about us, you've got all the usual places. The lads have given you the emails. I'm having a lot of fun doing this. Hopefully you guys are listening to it and enjoying it. Be sure to give us some feedback. Tell us the sort of guests you'd like. We do have a stacked lineup coming, getting some big household names in the golf industry on here, some educational content, and of course, a bit of humour. So thank you, lads. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll see you back here next week, no doubt.